Hi guys, welcome to our latest game, and a bit of a sad tale. This is version 2 and a smaller game than we were putting on. We played quite a big game yesterday on a 10 by 6, 10 by 4 table, and we played the complete Battle of Vimiero, and we had about 15 to 20 battalions aside, and about 5 hours of recording, and then I came to edit and put it all together. And somehow I managed to corrupt the file. So we had lost everything. So that was a bit gutting. So anyway, my better half has given me permission to do another video today. So a smaller game today, part of the Battle of Vimiero. We have played this one before, but I hope you're enjoying seeing this one. Slightly different terrain this time. We're using my terrain tiles rather than my terrain mats for this game. And as a result, terrain is a bit more of an approximation and a bit more rugged than Vimiero actually was, but hopefully it'll be a good game. So anyway, so when was the Battle of Vimiero? And I'm sure I am massacring that pronunciation. So it was in 1808, and it followed Wellesley's first successful action at Rolica, where he fought off a small French attack. And he now took up a position at Vimiero in order to cover the landing of additional British troops. And General Junot closed in on this position and indeed executed a flanking manoeuvre, which, if we play the second scenario, you may well see come into action. And the key to this position was Vimiero Hill. So we can see it represented here. We might be able to see it as what the British troops are resting on as we look at the table at the moment. And here is the village of Vimiero itself on the left. The French objectives are to capture the hill and break 2 British brigades, and the British win by similarly holding the hill and not having their brigades broken. So let's have a look at the forces. So the British have a reserve available on turn 5 of 2 battalions, which will be a further brigade, which will come onto table on turn 5. But otherwise they start with this fairly strong formation here on the right. This is Anstruther's brigade. So we have 2 line infantry regiments, the 9th and the 97th, and then 2 light battalions. Actually, it was the 43rd and 52nd. Actually, we have the 52nd and 71st as the lights on the table here today. And they are also supported by this 9-pounder foot battery in the centre. On their left, they have Fane's brigade, which starts here. And that is the 50th, or representing the 50th regiment. And then we have 2 battalions of rifles, the 60th and the 95th, here holding this village and holding the left flank of the British position. Facing them, we have 3 brigades of French, 2 already on table. So we have Thomier's very small brigade of 2 battalions here, and a larger brigade of Charlotte, with 4 battalions in support there. And currently off table, because we will bring them on during the course of turn 1, we have 3 combined grenadier regiments. All the French troops are a mixture of line and second line. The 86th, which is this small brigade over here, is line, and the 4 battalions here are second line. So we'll be treating them as reservists. So first 4 casualties, they count as line troops. After that, they fight as conscripts. But the combined grenadiers are really strong. We will have 3 battalions of veterans for the combined grenadiers. For the British, we have the light battalions as veterans and the 95th Rifles, but not the 60th, as veterans. And all the others will be line. All right, hope you enjoy this small game. It goes on for 12 turns. And let's get cracking with turn 1. Hopefully this time I'll manage to get the editing right and we will be able to see the products of all this labour. Cheers everyone. Okay, let's kick off the game by rolling 4 ADCs. So Junot gets 1 bonus ADC, so he's got 3 brigades, 2 on the table, but the third one just off the table waiting to come on, so we'll count that one as well. So he gets 4 ADCs, but he only gets 2 activations. And then Wellesley gets 2 bonus ADCs. He has 2 brigades on table, and here's the final brigade as an off-table reserve. Wow, he only gets 1 ADC. All right, so how will we allocate those? I think the French know they'll put re-rolls on their reserve brigade and the brigade that here in the centre, the main attack. So let's roll for those. Main brigade needs its reroll and it goes active. The reserve needs its reroll, goes active, and then the final French brigade is also active. So they're all active and no penalties for initiative. For the British, we will put an activation on the big brigade because it gives us the great opportunity to get our artillery firing at long range. They go active, the smaller brigade goes active as well. So no penalties, and let's roll for initiative. Who gets the first turn? So we kick off the game. The French get the 7, the British get a 7. All right. Reroll, as there's no advantage from a previous turn. The French get a 6 and the British get a 3. Perhaps fitting, as Junot has the attack orders as he starts his first invasion of Portugal. All right, French to do charges. There won't be any of them, so French to move first. All right, at the end of the first turn's movement, the main French brigade is moving forward. 4 battalions are deploying in checkerboard formation, supported by their skirmish screen, which is also a set of the skirmishers are allowing the French horse artillery to deploy screened from the effects of potential English skirmishers. In addition to this brigade advancing, the combined grenadiers have now come on table and are looking to reinforce this main attack. In the centre, the guns are poised to fire, and the other small French brigade is also moving out. In response, the Allied centre hasn't moved. The 95th Rifles have edged forwards across the stream to potentially apply some pressure and drive off the attack on this side. And as we move across here, we've moved forward the 52nd Light slightly to potentially drive off those French gunners and also to increase the strength of the position and between the hill here and those woods ahead of them. All right, that's it for movement. We'll open up with French firing. French artillery from the hill, although the horse artillery won't fire this turn as it's got its own skirmish screen right in front of it. All right, time for firing. Okay, we'll start with the French skirmish screen. You get 3 dice for base up to 4 bases of skirmishers. You lose 1 for firing at skirmishers. So they'll fire at the British skirmish screen and cause no casualties. We'll also do the skirmishers on the other side of the table. They will fire at the 95th Rifles, 1 dice, and that causes no casualties. And then finally, the French heavy artillery battery on the hill will open up at this unit of British regulars. This is at long range, and they roll a 7. That is, I think, half casualty, which does convert. First casualty of the game as some of the French artillery starts ranging in. All right, so the Allies will return fire. So they've got 5 to 6 skirmish bases here. So that will normally be 4 dice, reduced to 3 for firing at the French skirmisher screen. They cause 1 casualty. They get 1, 5 or 6. That's 1 casualty on the French. I'll mark them up in a second. Then the British artillery here will fire. It's going to fire at the greatest threat, which will be this closing column directly to its front. I believe this will be at effective range. Pretty good roll. They roll a 10. So a 10 at effective range for artillery is 3 casualties on the French battalion and a discipline test. There'll be no penalty on this discipline test. They are regular troops. They roll a 9, so they're fine, but 3 casualties on that battalion. Again, I'll mark that up in a second. And then finally, the 95th Rifles will open up. 3 shots normally for them against the French skirmisher screen down here, down to 2 because they're firing at skirmishers, but +1 because you've got the rifles and they get a bonus. But again, no 5s or 6s, so no casualties. So light casualties in turn 1. We'll move on to turn 2. All right, so a much healthier roll of ADCs for Wellesley there. He got all 4 of his ADCs and he's allocated them to his gun battery, so that gun battery is on artillery assault. The French went for infantry assault and have applied that onto their combined grenadiers, so getting ready for their assault moves. Otherwise, all brigades are active. Both sides are rolled a 7 for initiative, but as the French had initiative last turn on a draw, they again get to go first in turn 2. We'll see if there are any charges. Again, I don't imagine there will be, and then we'll be on to normal movement. Okay, turn 2 and firing. So the skirmishers have exchanged some fire, so no great effect from those. But this artillery battery is again going to open fire against the British troops down here. Let's see how they do. Again, the battery fire is at long range. And a 5, that's half a casualty, which does convert. So again, up to 2 casualties on this unit. It's going to take a long time to wear them down at that rate. All right, then the horse artillery is going to open fire against the British unit here. It is shielded by its skirmishers, but it's out of canister range. So it'll just be a straight ball shot, which will go through the skirmisher screen unaffected and into this unit of the 52nd. And they roll a 7. And a 7 at effective range is 1 casualty on the 52nd. So that's the French artillery firing done. And then the British will return fire. They have got artillery assault on this battery. And we'll check, but I believe this battalion here will be at close range now. The skirmisher screen will take the first casualty, but let's see what we do. We roll an 8 and we get a bonus dice from the artillery assault. So an 8 at close range, if it is, will be 3 casualties. So that'll be 4 casualties and a discipline test. I will just check that range and make sure that's right. Okay, that was correct, and we've applied the results. First casualty went against the skirmisher screen, which took their losses up to 3, so they lost a base. We're now at 6 casualties on this attacking French battalion that's been the subject of all the British artillery fire. So this will be a discipline test at -1. So that will take it down to a 7. They are now conscripts because they've taken more than 4 casualties, but conscripts in column do not suffer a -1 penalty, which they would in other formations. So that doesn't fall to a 6, so they don't go unformed, so they can carry on as they are. All right, that's it for firing in turn 2. Let's see what happens as we move on to turn 3. All right, turn 3, and an overextending effort by both of the leaders here. So Wellington managed to acquire no less than 5 ADCs, having rolled a double 6, which gives him a bonus of 1, and went for artillery assault on this battery, and we rolled 1 twice. So they went hesitant, as did this brigade, and the other smaller brigade on the left has gone active. For the French, we went for only 2 ADCs, but we decided to plump to try and take a risk and get infantry assault off on the attacking brigade here. That failed to go off, so they're hesitant, and the combined grenadiers also had no reroll. They went hesitant, but the attacking brigade on the right is active. So for both armies, all the action will be on the left flank, if any, this turn. All right, let's do the movement. The French retained the initiative, so they get to move first. Okay, back, and we'll be doing some artillery firing with the French. We've done the skirmisher exchange, and the British skirmisher screen here has done well and caused another couple of casualties on the French screen there, and that one's in a bit of a dire state. Over here, so we move across to the left-hand side, the French moved up and one of the battalions charged the 95th Rifles skirmish screen, who unfortunately failed their discipline test. They lost a base and had to fall back behind their own line. And actually, remarkably, the French skirmishers here did well and caused 2 casualties on the 95th Rifles. All right, so we'll start with artillery firing by the French. We've done all the skirmisher fire, as I say. So the French horse artillery battery will open up at effective range against the 52nd again. And we roll a 7. At effective range is, I think, 1 casualty from memory. I think that's what we got last time. 1 casualty there. And then we'll open up at long range again against the 50th line in the centre of the table. Let's see what we do. That's an 8. Slightly better, but at long range, I think, again, that is just 1 casualty. So French artillery, light impact, but nothing too significant. All right, then the French will take a shot from the British artillery here. Can only fire directly straight ahead. That infantry battalion, however, is in its tram lines and is still the greatest threat. So they will open fire against them. That's a 7, which at close range is 2 more casualties and a discipline test. All right, we'll mark those up and back with the discipline test in a second. Okay, discipline on the test on the French. This will be at -1. They've now taken 7 casualties, and the result is a 10. So they're still good. All right, that's it for turn 3. Let's see what happens in turn 4. Okay, again, good rolls for ADCs, plenty available, and unfortunately for Wellesley, exactly the same result. He clearly needs to replace his battery commander We had a re-roll on artillery assault, and we rolled 2 2s this time rather than 2 1s. So the orders don't get through, and that battery will only be able to fire normally. The French were successful. They got infantry assault off, so now both of these brigades have infantry assault orders in place to capture the ridge. And otherwise, all French brigades are active, and the left-hand British brigade is active, and the French have initiative. So let's see if they do any charges this turn. And before we do that, we did have some shooting from the British. The 95th Rifles will open fire against the French at the tail end of last turn. I'll just do that and let you know what the result is, and then we'll do the movement. Okay, so sorry, I'd forgotten this left-hand side of the table. So we get some shots from the garrison. Wow, that's pretty good. That causes 2 casualties on this French battalion. And then the 95th Rifles will open up. I think they will have to fire through that skirmisher screen because it's certainly partly in the way of some of their British firing. So this will be a superior volley, and they roll a 3. So that's not good. They actually lose fire discipline, so they won't be able to move in this next turn to recover their firing effectiveness. All right, we'll mark those casualties up on the French from the fire from the garrison, and then we'll resume with charging and movement in this next turn. Okay, in the beginning of this turn, the French have been pretty active. They have charged against the 95th Rifles. That will be an unsupported charge because they don't have infantry assault on this brigade. I think it's a bit foolhardy, but they're giving it a go. We've moved the combined Grenadiers skirmish screen up to put pressure on this battalion. We've been hitting with our long-range artillery fire, and the Grenadiers are continuing to move forward on the table. In the centre, we've done a sort of passage of lines, the advantage of the checkerboard formation, and our second line infantry battalions have passed through the front line, so these battalions currently have no casualties, so they'll be hopefully able to execute their assaults next turn. Otherwise, French artillery fire continues, and all the other battalions remain unmoved. So the French have initiative. Let's see how they do with their firing this turn. Okay, so we'll start with the defensive volley from the 95th Rifles as the French charged in. So let's see how they do. This will be a superior volley. We've rolled an 8. So superior volley is 3 casualties in a discipline test against that attacking French battalion. Hasn't taken any casualties yet, so let's see how they do on the discipline test. A 6. That won't help their charge. They go unformed. Okay, let's roll the charge results here. So we get +1 for the 95th Rifles for being veterans. The French have the general attached, the British don't, as he's too far away. So that will take that to equal. However, they are unformed, so that'll be -2 off the French. They took 2 casualties coming in, so it'll be at -4. So -4 off the French dice roll. Neither side have any support. Okay, so -4 off the French gets them down to a 5. The British result is a 6. So on a 0 to -1, they stop and they let loose a volley against the 95th Rifles, which does cause 1 casualty. All right, we'll position those units and mark those casualties up. Okay, so we've just completed skirmisher fire, pretty effective this turn. So the skirmishers on the hill opened fire at this French battalion that had been unformed and caused an extra casualty. The garrison out of the village fired against the French skirmisher screen here, caused 2 casualties, which was enough to knock out a base. It was only a 2-base strong skirmish screen, so that means that's destroyed, and actually there will be a falter test for loss of their skirmish screen on this small French brigade. In the centre down here, we caused another series of casualties, and the 50th line are now on 7 casualties as a result of fire by the combined Grenadier skirmish screen. Over here on the right, skirmishers didn't really do too much. So it's now time for the artillery. French going first again. They'll continue to target the 50th line. Let's see how they do. 1-1, that'll be a fatigue casualty on the French artillery battery on the hill. And then the horse artillery will open fire actually against this unit now, as they don't want to go through their own skirmishers. So we'll, although we are firing ball, and I think ball can just go straight through skirmisher screens. So we will fire ball against this target because it is the closest one. I think that's right. 1-1. This is pretty remarkably bad for the French this turn. So that's another fatigue casualty on the French battery. And then the British will open fire with ball. They won't be able to fire at these closest battalions. because they'd be in canister range and they'd hit their own skirmishers. So I wonder whether they can fire at anyone. We'll fire at that battalion at the back. I think they'll be able to fire ball at that one. I think that's at close range too, so that would also be canister, so we can't do that. We'll fire at this battalion back here, possibly get some burst through against the combined grenadiers. Another pretty terrible roll. A 4, which I don't think will be anything, but it does cause a bounce through casualty against the combined grenadiers. All right, I'll mark up what is mainly damage inflicted upon themselves by all that artillery fire this turn. Okay, so all French brigades are active, and we've actually got infantry assault now off on a right-hand brigade, so all the French brigades have infantry assault. For the Allies, they have activated their reserves. They can now come on table at the start of turn 5, but unfortunately the major brigade here in the centre didn't have a reroll, and it went hesitant. So let's roll for initiative. The French will be at +1. The French roll a 6, modified up to a 7, so the French retain initiative, so they get to execute charges at the beginning of turn 5. Okay, so the 2nd French Infantry Battalion has charged in here, taking advantage of having the ability to use its unformed brethren and supports. In the centre, the French Brigade has crashed into the British line here, again with supports, and we'll see how the defensive fire goes. We'll start from right to left. We will get a supportive volley from the 52nd Light, who will have a shot at this attacking French column as it moves across its front. Okay, so this will be a superior volley. First one will be taken against the skirmisher screen. We roll a 6 for a superior volley. It's 2 casualties, so it's 1 on the skirmisher screen and 1 on this attacking French battalion, which takes us up to 2. Let's put the casualties on the skirmisher screen. Okay, they take 1. Just so you know, this British skirmisher screen was hit by the charge. It failed its discipline test and lost a base and had to fall back. All right, we'll now do some canister fire as this gun battery opens up at the attacking French. Wow, that's pretty good. That's an 11. That's going to be a bit devastating. So at close range, an 11 is 4 casualties and a discipline test against the French. The majority of casualties have to go against the lead attacking battalion, so they'll take 2. The supporting battalion takes another 2. And so the attacking battalion has now taken 3 casualties as a result of the charge. I think that's how you allocate the casualties when you're doing the combat results. You only take the ones on the actual battalion that's in the combat result. I think that's right. It might be total casualties on the attacking unit. I'm not sure. If you know, please leave me a comment. All right, let's do the charge resolution as this battalion goes in. Okay, so this is straight -2 to the French because of the casualties they suffered on the way in with their charge. Right, I'll reroll that. Wow, that's a double 6. Double 6 is a destiny test, and it was -2, we said. So that takes it down to a 10, so they have 1 by 1. Let's see what that result is. Okay, let's roll the destiny test for the French battalion. Rolling the double 6, they get a 6, which is recover 1 casualty or melee with the land. Well, they're already meleeing with the land, so they will choose to recover 1 casualty. So they go down to 3, which will help them in the combat phase. So they've charged in, and the British battery has gone unformed. So that looks good for the attacking French column. All right, let's do the superior volley here from the other British Light Battalion going against this next French attacking column. Not so good, but still not a bad result. They roll a 6 for a superior volley. That is 2 casualties, so it will have some result on the charge as the French come in. All right, let's work out the charge modifiers. So the British are veterans, and they've caused 1 casualty on the French. So they will be winning this by 2. Both have attached generals. So this is +2 to the British roll. Wow, the British roll a 3, the French roll a 4. The French will use their reroll. The French roll a 9. That plays a 3, but we do make that up to a 5 because of the modifiers. So the French have won this one by 4. So again, a great result for the French. Unusual that the British battalions haven't been able to hold them off. So they take the ground, and the British Lights have to retreat and take 1d3 casualties. Let's see how many casualties they take. Well, they take 3 casualties. Let's move them. Okay, so garrisons can't support, so I'm not sure whether they can do defensive fire, although it would seem unreasonable, I think, for me to not let them, so I will let them fire a defensive shot. They cause 1 casualty on the French charging in support. Actually, they're out of support range. They're not within 3 inches, so I'm not going to allow that. So I'll take that back. No casualties for the French from that. But we do have a superior volley from the 95th Rifles. Let's see what they do. They roll an 8. That's pretty good. So superior volley 8 is 3 casualties and a discipline test. This takes this battalion up to 5. Let's see what their discipline test is. They roll a 9. They are all right. They don't go unformed, but they have taken 3 casualties in the charge. All right, so that'll be a -3 modifier for the French. They will put their commander in. The British commander, I think this turn, has had time, so he will come over and join the British forces. So he's within command range, so I think that's all right. So that is 3 casualties on the French. So this will be a modifier of -1 for being more than 4 casualties and -2 for the 3 casualties caused in that round. So this will be a modifier of +3 to the British score. So the French roll a 7 and the British roll a 7. So the British will win by 3 because that was the base modifier. So this will be a charge at -3. So the attacker would retire with 1 casualty. I think the French are going to let that stand. All right, that's it for charges. We'll now be on to normal movement. Okay, turn 5 movement. Most of the battalions down here were involved in the assault, so can't move. No real movement possibilities for this line battalion here. It's very much squeezed on the base of the British position. This battalion of British has moved slightly to the right, so it can volley next turn. Down here, the French combined grenadiers are moving up. And as you can see, moving behind them, perhaps prematurely, is the French horse artillery, which was putting pressure on the British here, which are in a dangerous flanking position. But the French feel there's a need to reinforce their right, as more British battalions have appeared on the table. So we can see the KGL have just arrived here to threaten this French brigade on the left-hand side. And remembering that French brigade do have to take a full to test this turn because their skirmish screen was wiped out and they were thrown back. All right, that is, and apologies, that might have actually been, they had to take it last turn, but they'll have to take one this turn instead. All right, that's it for the movement in turn 5. There'll be some firing of skirmisher screens, and I'll be back with some artillery. Okay, we'll open up with the heavy artillery on the hill. They're going to switch target to the 95th Rifles, start protecting this flank. Wow, another pretty good roll, a double 6. That'll be a destiny test. Let's see what the destiny test gives. 7, that's a casualty recovery, so I think. So they will just simply recover that casualty. And a 12 at long range is 3 casualties and a discipline test on the 95th Rifles. Let's roll for the 95th Rifles. Whoa. We'll go and check the casualty status first as I've dropped the dice. Okay, so this will be a leadership discipline test at -1. That's 7, so they are fine, but they are on 6 casualties now as the result of the repeated pounding from the French artillery. The French skirmisher screen will open up here against the 50th Light. There should be 3 dice. I'll roll another one. That's 2 casualties, and the third dice is nothing, so 2 more casualties against this battalion. It's really in quite desperate straits now. Okay, so the British do some return fire. This battalion on the crags here will do an inferior volley as it moved against this French battalion that's just crested the hill. We roll an 8 as an inferior volley. That's 2 casualties on this French battalion. And then the 50th Down here we'll fire at that French skirmisher screen. It'll be at -4. What do they roll? 5. They lose fire discipline. That'll be no effect to them. I think that's it for firing this turn. That's the end of turn 5. We'll move on with turn 6. How could I forget? You ask. The melee in the centre, of course, I did. But I've remembered before I've done anything else. All right, so 5 dice for the French. 3 for an artillery battery. The artillery battery loser was 1 for being unformed. And the French gain 1 for meleeing with a lan. Let's see how we do. All right. The artillery crews cause 1 casualty on the French. The French cause 3 on the artillery. The artillery will break. Okay, so all brigades are active. We've just got the 2 filter tests to do. So firstly, on the French brigade on the far right-hand side, we do have a reroll. We roll a 5. That'll be pretty good. On veteran and line, they obey orders, so no problems there. And then on the British brigade in the centre here, important rolls for them. This is because of that artillery battery being wiped out. They roll a 3, which is a retire. So retreating units disperse. So the light battalion that we've got will be off the table. So, and in fact, this whole British brigade will go off the table. So we will re-roll. Wow, it was nearly a 6, then it was nearly a 1. And it actually ended up as a 4. So on a veterans and line, we rally. So retreating units rally, routed units disperse, remove the falter marker, and the brigade is hesitant. And you must step back if you're within 9 inches of an enemy unit. So it might well be that the British relinquish the hill. All right, let's see what happens. All right, well, a pretty devastating result for the British. The 52nd have had to step back 9 inches. All the British battalions here that were hanging on for dear life and probably going to get charged this turn again by the French have been forced to step back off the table. So that whole brigade has pretty much gone off table. I'll have to consider whether they can come on again, but I think if the French occupy this ridge, there's nowhere for them to come back onto. So I think that will be probably that brigade gone. Over here on the right, the French have passed initiative, but for the first time in the game, the Allies, passed their filter test, but for the first time in the game, the Allies have initiative. So let's see what they do. Are there any charges as we start turn 7? In a moment of major indecision, the French have redeployed their horse artillery battery to try and gun down this remaining British battalion that's on the flank here. Otherwise, the French brigade has occupied this hill. Over here, we have done a charge, which I haven't executed yet. So the combined grenadiers have charged this British battalion. We'll see how they do. We've got the skirmishers and the artillery to potentially fire, depending on how that charge result goes. Over here, the British lines have moved up to threaten these 2 French brigades, who have formed up. So it looks a bit weak for the French on the right flank, but I don't think the British have got enough time to push the French back off the ridge. All right, let's see how we do in turn 7, and we'll start with charges down here and the defensive volley by the 50th line. Okay, so this will be a superior volley, but at -2 because of the level of casualties. Wow, that will do quite a lot of damage to those combined grenadiers. That's a 10, it goes down to an 8. Superior volley is 3 casualties on the French and a discipline test. Let's see what their discipline test is. 9. They are fine, but they do take 3 casualties. First of the game. Okay, so I'll just position it like that. Yeah, so we have got a support for the French from their other combined grenadier battalion, and the French are on -2 because of casualties from the charge, but +1 for being veterans. The Allies are on -2 from casualties. The French get a re-roll as well. Let's see how we do in the charge result. The French get an 8, the British get a 3. That will be enough. So that becomes a 9 against a 3. They rout this British battalion. All right, guys, we're going to call it at the beginning of turn 8. We've been playing for a couple of hours, or I've been playing for a couple of hours, and that's it. So we had lost the 50th line here and had to do a filter test. Wellington managed to get 4 ADCs, 5 ADCs, so he was in 4 ADCs, I think. So he was in good shape, and he put a full re-roll on. We rolled a 3, which was a retire result, which wouldn't have been great news for the forces on the left flank. because the units in this building and the 95th Rifles were within 18 inches of the table edge. That'd be another brigade retreating off table. So I re-rolled and we rolled a 1, which is a savoir keeper. So the 95th Rifles and the 60th Rifles really took fright at the loss of the ridge and the combined grenadiers outflanking them. They've given up this village and given up the totality of the ridge. So this is a resounding victory for the Allies. The only forces we have left on the table are the 2 KGL battalions that only came on the last couple of turns as reinforcements, and 1 battalion of lights over there in the corner. So all over for the Allies, and a glorious victory for the French. This really doesn't happen often in our peninsular battles, so some great dice rolling by the French, and perhaps for once a reasonably comprehensive campaign. So, or a reasonably comprehensive plan. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let us have your thoughts, give us any comments. Remember to subscribe if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel. And I'll see you all again next time. I'll close with a few photos and see you all soon. Cheers.